Hi, good morning. My name is Eric Levinson, Head of Business Development here at VinaCapital, and we're here with Andy Ho, Chief Investment Officer and Lead Portfolio Manager of Vietnam Opportunity Fund, the London Listed Exchange, VOF. So Andy, 2020 was an interesting year, but it was also a very, very successful year for VOF. Can you give us at a high level kind of a performance on the fund?
Thanks, Eric. 2020 was a very challenging year for many of us around the world, including Vietnam. But we have been very fortunate, like others around the world. The capital markets have done very, very well. Vietnam is the same. As a result, for the year, calendar year 2020, VOF delivered over 27% return on its NAV. For the last 6 months of the year, from July to December, VOF delivered almost 28% return. And in that mix, roughly 80% of the VOF portfolio is in listed assets. And that component in itself, for the year 2020, delivered over 36% return. And for the last 6 months, it delivered over 43% return. Now, just to give you a comparison, we don't really compare ourselves against the Vietnam index, but just as a reference point, for the year 2020, the VN index increased over 17%. And for the last 6 months, the VN index increased 36%.
Yeah, so it's nice that you're looking at a portfolio, but 80% public equities, 20% private equity, delivering a lower overall volatility profile, but still outperforming. So as you think about 2020, from an attribution perspective, what did well, what drove performance?
Yeah, I think a couple of key holdings that drove the performance, but what's important is these are long-term holdings that we've had along. The number one company in our portfolio now, previously was Vinamilk, now is a steel company called Hoa Phat, HPG. We entered this business in 2008 as a private equity investment. I sat on the board for 6 years, built the foundation for them to grow to where they are today. So we are now basically plucking the fruits of the investments that we've made with this business many years ago. Hoa Phat this year alone went up 116%, and it made up 18% of the total NAV of VOF. So in the VN index, it makes up about 3%. So you can see it's roughly 6 times the weight. Now again, we aren't referencing ourselves against the VN index. We feel good and we feel bullish about a particular business, and we take a large holding of this business. And we still feel very strong about Hoa Phat and its ability to grow in the next 2 or 3 years. And why is that? The capacity they've introduced into market is about 2 million tons per year. And next year, they're going to introduce another 2 million tons. They continue to grow, and they're producing steel at a very low cost relative to their competitors.
So infrastructure continues to be a story. I know another couple of holdings that really helped performance were some bank stocks. Can you mention specifics about those particular securities?
Yes, banks done very, very well through the year, and we have banks like OCB, Exim Bank. And during the second half of the year, we took on about 5% of our portfolio in a bank called ACB. And that bank alone, during the last 6 months of the year, have gone up 60%. And there was some catalyst to that. ACB signed a bank assurance contract with Sun Life and received a one-time fee of $370 million. During the second half, they also migrated onto the Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange from Hanoi Stock Exchange. And there'll be another catalyst coming in the next year or so, and we hope to see more value increase through that. But catalyst aside, it's a great bank. It's growing at least 15 to 20% earnings per share per annum, and it's one of the best private banks in Vietnam.
Interesting. So as you think about Hoa Phat and the banks, that's fantastic. Are there any specific transactions that you've done over the last couple of months that are also worth highlighting?
Before we go into that, I just want to make sure that not everything is rosy in the portfolio.
Sure.
We do have assets that have been impacted by the pandemic.
Yep.
We have been fortunate to have exited airlines businesses in 2019. But in our portfolio, as most of you may know, we have a company called ACV, which manages about 22 airports in Vietnam. And clearly, they've been impacted by travel restriction. But we've been very fortunate that ACV did increase its share prices of 8% during the year. But for the last 6 months, they've gone up almost 40%. So although it has been impacted, we are seeing a very significant rebound in the share price of ACV. And I think it has a lot to do with the announcement of the vaccine and the hope in the near future that travel will come back to normal again. I think the word normal is a bit questionable, but hopefully we'll get back to normal travel in the next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, and for those of you that are reading, there's also construction on a new airport, so there's lots of reason to be excited about air travel, be it domestically or internationally. I'll go back to my earlier question. Any specific transactions from the last 6 months that are noteworthy?
Yes, we've been very busy with travel restrictions. We've had basically less folks coming to Vietnam to look at some of the opportunities available to us. But over the last 6 months, we've been very fortunate to deploy over $90 million into 3 major deals. We invested in the largest private hospital system called Tuco in Hanoi. We also invested in a structured product in the largest confectionery business. They're in edible oil, they're in ice cream. It's called KDC on the exchange. And we talk about it as a structured product, means that it's a product that has downside protection, but it also has an equity upside. Okay. We also deploy almost $45 million into one of the largest real estate development company, again, a structured product.
Okay, terrific. So that's what the most relevant transactions look like. How about the pipeline in 2021? Are there things that you are at liberty to discuss? And I think what I'd highlight for the audience, you mentioned that people can't come to Vietnam, but you've been here a long time, managed the portfolio for many years. The connections with VinaCapital overall are very strong. Even if people return, I'd like to think we have a competitive advantage when it comes to deal flow.
Sure, I think one of the key advantages, I'm Vietnamese, I speak Vietnamese, and Don and I have developed relationships with key business leaders for many, many years. So hopefully that'll continue to help us source good deals. But as far as the pipeline for 2021 and beyond, we're pretty excited about it. We have about $200 million worth of opportunities. We are very discriminate. We are putting a lot of emphasis on downside protections because although we are recovering quite nicely from an equity perspective, valuation perspective, there's a lot of uncertainties there out in the market. A lot of businesses find that growing earnings is not easy. It's still very challenging. The quality of the balance sheet is also questionable. So we are spending a lot more time with these businesses and making sure that the foundation or the lack of foundation that they have, and if we can fix the foundation, that they'll be laid for the next 3 to 5 years so that we can have a good business. So we're looking at sectors such as education. We're also looking at a lot more consumer businesses and more healthcare.
Interesting. So when you say kind of from a theme, there's no really one industry that dominates, but it's really about domestic consumption is what's going to be driving kind of the private equity part of the portfolio.
Yes, as you know, the GDP growth in Vietnam is expected to grow about 6 to 7% in 2021, and people are getting wealthier. GDP per capita is around 3,000 per person, and as people get wealthier, they're going to consume. They consume homes, materials, furnishing, to cars, to automobiles, to motorbikes, to food and foodstuff, schools, education, healthcare, banks. So all that will be consumed, and we just want to make sure we get a chance to invest in the top businesses that cater to the demand of the consumers.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you so much for that outlook. I thought it was a great view, kind of a looking back 2020 and a forward looking for 2021. For those of you for joining us, we'll be doing these definitely quarterly and monthly if there is demand. So Andy, thank you so much. And to the group overall, speak soon.
Thank you.